Today is Tuesday, April 12th. The board meeting was called to order today at 5:15 p.m. With the board going directly into executive session under ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions, and ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. It is now 6 p.m. and we are reconvening our meeting with the public session, which is a regular business meeting. All board members are present. Director Guzman-Ortiz, may you please read the welcome message? Are you having technical difficulties? Okay, I will go ahead and read it as Director Guzman-Ortiz tries to get her technical difficulties in order. Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Welcome and bienvenidos to the Salem-Keizer School Board meeting. At all times, whether we meet in person or virtual as we are tonight, we strive to be inclusive, respectful, and welcoming to our students, staff, educators, administrators, board members, and all community members. We welcome people of all genders, people of African descent, Black, African American, Asian descent, Arab descent, European descent, those who identify as Hispanic, Latinx, people indigenous to this land, and people of mixed and multiple descents. Language spoken in our communities are welcome: Spanish, English, indigenous languages, sign language, Chukis, Somali, Russian, Chinese, Vietnamese, and many more. People with disabilities, visible or invisible. People of all religions, believers in all faiths or creeds, gay, lesbian, bisexual, heterosexual, pansexual, transgender, queer, or others for whom none of the labels fit. Survivors, your emotions, joy, bliss, grief, rage, indignation, contentment, disappointment. Your families, genetic and otherwise. Our veterans who proudly served and are currently serving our country. Our elders, those here in this room, in our lives, and those who have passed away. People impacted or displaced by the war in Ukraine and other violent conflicts. Yes, and we finally would like to welcome the ancestors who lived in this land where we live and work. Welcome the spirits of the Santiam, Kalapuya, Siletz, and Grand Ronde, the natives who lived in this area before the Europeans came. Welcome y bienvenidos. We want to remind our community that transgender students and staff are valued members of the Salem-Keizer school community. We know that transgender students experience greater rates of mental health concerns and suicidal ideation, and that when transgender youth who had access to spaces that affirmed their gender identity reported lower rates of attempting suicide. We are committed to the well-being of transgender students and staff. We stand behind our commitment to the creation of safe and welcoming schools. This time, I'd like to ask fellow board members to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to our no agenda modification. So we'll move into agenda item number 4, our spotlights. I'll ask our superintendent to take over.
All right, good evening, everyone. Chair Vila, members of the board. It's great to see all of you here. Our spotlights tonight, we have 3 to present. The first one is going to be presented by Principal Chad Barks from Sprague High School. I think I saw Chad. And if you have anybody with you tonight, if you'd ask them to turn on their cameras, I see another Ole in the house.
Yeah, Sean Doman, if you'll, I think he's on
There
as well.
Is.
Perfect. Hey, Sean. Chair Villa, Board Director, Superintendent Perry. Tonight, I would like to share a highlight that's going on in Sprague with our unified sports class and program. Sean Doman and Janelle Cash are the teachers in our current in that program. They've done a great job stressing inclusion among all of our students. We've grown our unified sports class almost beyond what we can handle, which is a great problem. Sean and I keep talking about increasing the amount of sections we're going to be offering. And next year, I think we're going to be increasing, doubling the amount of students we have participating in our unified sports. We've had this program for several years. South Salem High School started, and we are right with them on our efforts to continue growing, not just unified sports, but we're going to take this into other areas of our content, our business programs, our art programs. We are partnering with some of the other programs we have in our building. And what I love, and I think Sean would say this as well, unified programs are challenging our student body and teachers to look at inclusion in new ways. Really looking at trying to break some of those barriers for our students and getting them actively engaged with our student body, with our ASB and leadership, and partnering with our Arbiter and outward work that we are doing within the building as well. So we have 4 unified programs that are allowing more than 100 regular education students to be active participants. And I believe, and Sean would say this, our goal is that we will soon be a unified program school of recognition in the coming year. So I want to say thank you to Sean and Janelle for your guys' active work and continuing the work as we move forward. We look forward to many successful years of our unified programs.
Sean, thank you for your work and support of our unified programs at Sprague, and Principal Barks for your leadership as well. All right. Our next spotlight is going to be presented by Principal Eric Jesperson from McNary High School. We're going from one end of the community to the other tonight.
All right. Thank you, Chair Avila, Board Directors, and Superintendent Perry, and Sean, if you're still on. Unified Sports is awesome, so keep it up. Good job, Chad, as well. So I have the opportunity to present one of our more popular, outstanding teachers in our social studies department. When McNary High School was asked to present someone for the Spotlight of Success, it was an easy decision for us to really bring up Natalie Peaton as the person we wanted to spotlight, just because she just does an amazing job. Our students love her class. She's very popular with our student body. She gets along great with our staff. She's positive. She's got a passion for social studies, and she does whatever it takes to support kids. She teaches freshmen, our freshman world social studies class, and she also teaches AP government. And when you walk into her class, kids are not only learning about social studies, but they're learning about just all levels of history and how it connects with current events. It's an engaging and interesting class. She celebrates all students and their heritages. If you go into her room, you'll see there are large maps where each student has marked a pin to show where they were born and where their families came from. Her classroom environment encourages kids to be organized and to take ownership for their learning and to collaborate with one another. So she's getting all the kids engaged every day. She's an incredibly effective teacher. She teaches kids how to take focused notes, which is really important for us to be able to access rigorous text and to think on their own, think critically. She's created a welcoming environment for her kids and holds them to a high standard. In addition to what she does in the classroom, she's also a leader for us in our building. She serves as one of our 4 licensed staff teachers that are on our advisory committee. We have an advisory each week, and Natalie and 3 of her colleagues work with our team to put together some great lessons for our kids. So she's not only a great teacher who's positive and kids really enjoy her, she's also a leader in our building. McNary High School had a 96.23% graduation rate this past year, which is a big bump. And it's people like Natalie that made that happen, working in the trenches every day, working with kids, giving them opportunities, doing whatever it takes to support them. I could not be more proud of her as an educator and as a person. She is a smiling, bright spot every time I am walking down the social studies hallway, and I'm very appreciative, and she is without question a spotlight for us. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie, and thanks for the work you do with our kids each and every day. And your principal made it through without calling you world class. So I will call you world class.
And she's world class.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, Principal Jesperson.
Thank you.
All right. Our last spotlight on success, I think is going to be presented by Principal Leonard from Whitaker Middle School. I saw her on the line tonight. I did not see our assistant principal. I could have missed somebody. There's a lot. There she is. Another Keizer school being featured tonight. Hello, Principal Leonard from Whitaker Middle School.
Good evening, Chair Avila, Board Directors, and Superintendent Perry. Tonight, I want to share with you the amazing work being done this year by Whitaker Middle School's 8th grade leadership class led by teacher Amber Sweeney. Here are examples of the work these students do at school. Act as peer helpers. Leadership students help students new to Whitaker by giving them tours of the building and helping them find their classes. They also help other students go from class to class when special needs arise. Pay It Forward project. Students work in groups to promote kindness. This includes creating posters displayed throughout the school and videos with positive messages shown in the school. Encourage student athletes. Leadership students create individual posters for each of our athletes in every sport throughout the year to cheer them on during the sports season. Wolverine Kindness Challenge. Our students came up with individual and class kindness challenges where acts of kindness are recognized and rewarded. And here are examples of the work these students do out in the community. In November, students hosted 2 food drives to help Dayspring Fellowship Church fill Thanksgiving boxes for 200 Salem-Keizer families. In total, almost 4,000 pounds of food was given to families that needed a hand. In December, our Dollar Challenge helped Whitaker area students to have a better holiday season by collecting donations, working in cooperation with the Keizer Network of Women to buy gifts and necessities for students in need. I am so proud of the work Amber and her leadership students do throughout the school year to support our school and our community. They demonstrate values of kindness and giving we hold dear at Whitaker Middle School.
It looks like you have 3 students with you tonight. All right, thanks for being with us, William, Erica, and Grace. We appreciate you as leaders, and we look forward to seeing your leadership from middle school to high school, and then what you can accomplish in our community. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Sure nice to see kids.
Yes, smiling faces. Congratulations to our young students. That concludes your spotlight. So we'll move on to agenda item number 5 with your reports. If you want to continue, Superintendent Perry.
All right, we have a guest here tonight from Marion County. Tamara is here. Chair Avila has had a chance to connect with her and invite her here to talk a little bit about child abuse and child abuse prevention. So with that, I'm going to start with you so that you can be first on my report tonight. Tamara, it's great to see you.
Thank you, Superintendent. My name is Tamara Getch, and I'm with Marion County. I have the great pleasure this year to be working on the Child Abuse Prevention Month activities and promotion. So I'm really excited to see your backdrop this year, and just know that these are resources on our website at Marion County at the Community Services Department. They're downloadable, accessed, available for everyone. But just to kind of get us to understand just a little bit about Child Abuse Prevention Month, I want to kind of get our minds kind of squared a little bit here. So if you would do me a favor and just close your eyes for a moment and think about a time in your life where you have personally experienced either your own child or a family's child or a friend's child that when they came into this world, just think about the excitement, the joy, and just the appreciation and the hope that existed in that person's life and what they really aspired for those individuals that are coming into their life. So you have that in your mind. Now I'd like you to be thinking about a time that you've heard about, you've seen, or perhaps experienced in some way where that child or a child has had a opportunity that went sideways. For some reason, the child abuse prevention wasn't as strong where we could have it in our lives. We know, you can open your eyes now, and so I just want you to realize that our community is filled, as you well know, and is why you are all on this board. You all know that we are prevention advocates. We are people who are in lives of young people and parents who can make a difference. And it is the prevention that we put into our community that helps us wrap around supports of these families in times of need. So, as you can probably tell, I'm not able to have my prevention piece, but the pinwheels that you have, that you see behind our superintendent and others today, the pinwheel represents what a childhood should really be: fun, hopeful, full of promise, a little bit of wind, a lot of excitement. And that's really what we're looking at for how we can make this happen in Marion County, how we can put the good things in childhood. Unfortunately, in Oregon, we have over 11,600 children who have experienced child abuse or neglect. In Marion County alone, that's over 1,100 of those are from Marion County. And if you add Polk County into that, there's even more. So we know we have a heavy lift, but we also know that it's going to take a lot of effort for us all to do our part. And so there is, with the slogan, with the child abuse prevention, we all have a role to play. Parents have a role to play, and educators have a role to play, government has a role to play, neighbors, etc. I just challenge you today to think not only about your professional role, but also what can you do with your neighbors? What can you do with your family and friends? When they have a time of need, I know sometimes I ask if I can take their child for an ice cream or something. It's something that just kind of helps that family just step away, have a little breather time. Not everybody has the social circles that are needed to give them that one time for themselves to recoup. And it doesn't take a lot of energy or resources. It just may take a little bit of attention. So I just raised that to you today. I thank you for what you do. Just wanted to also highlight our iconic blue ribbon tree. It is a somber reminder that we have work to do in this community, but I know with the people that you have on this call tonight, as well as all of the wonderful organizations and individuals in our community that are working on this, we can make a difference together. So I just appreciate the time that you've allowed me just to talk about this. And I encourage you also to take a look at our website and see what resources you might want to take advantage of and share.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. So I have just a couple more topics, and then we're going to close out with Grace has a little part tonight in the superintendent's report. So I just want to start with some comments around our LGBTQ plus policy work, because I know that's been on people's minds, and you can go ahead and move through this one. So a couple resources, there you go, one more. A couple bits of research that I've pulled for you tonight, just to kind of center the why and the importance of our protection of our students. So those are there, they're in your PowerPoint. You can go and look up as well. They're also in some of the information I gave you over the weekend. Next slide. So one thing to know is that LGBTQ youth are 120% more likely to experience unaccompanied houselessness in Marion County, and that 42% of our LGBTQ plus youth have seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, including more than half of transgender and non-binary youth. Transgender and non-binary youth who are able to change their name and or gender marker on legal documents such as driver's license and birth certificates reported lower rates. This is not our data, this is the data from those projects. LGBTQ plus youth who had access to spaces that affirm their sexual orientation and gender identity reported lower cases of attempting suicide, and transgender and non-binary youth who reported having pronouns respected by all people they lived with attempted suicide at half the rate of those who did not have their pronouns respected by anyone with whom they lived. These policies were 3 years in the making. They started with, I think if you've read the Salem Reporter article, Julian, one of our students, who came to us and said, I need you to do better. We need to work on our policy work. They have worked with us for those 3 years with a number of other staff and people within the community to put these policies into practice. But the procedures are long-standing practices we've had, and they are supported by, we're following state and federal law when it comes to supporting our LGBTQ plus student population. I had a chance to kind of look at some legal research recently, but the courts have ruled that a transgender high school student can use a bathroom that matches their gender identity rather than their biological sex, and that such does not violate the privacy or religious rights of the other students. That's clear in the court cases. I know that Paul Dikopoulos could weigh in on that if you had questions. So it's not only our legal obligation, but when we know the experiences of our students, it's also our moral obligation. So I wanted to kind of highlight that tonight to be sure that you kind of knew the why and the both moral and legal obligation behind these. And it was basically putting in writing and into practice our in policy. With that, I'm going to switch gears and then I'll open up for other questions at the end. And the next part is Yvonne.
For my part?
Yep.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Avila and members of the board and Superintendent Perry. I'm just going to give you a really quick update on incidents of fighting and aggression and how we respond to those as a district and also at the school level as well. If you recall, earlier in the year, we had an uptick on the incidents of fighting and physical aggression. And we did a presentation on what happens when that occurs, how we're holding kids accountable, bright spots where we saw other referral areas go down, but we made a commitment to continue to give you an update on how things were progressing. And so when we spoke in the early winter, we did cite that incidents of fighting often increase prior to a break. And so we saw that in October and November, especially November, right before the Thanksgiving break. And then it's hard to say how much it went up in December because December was only a half a month, but we do think that there was a significant amount in December. And then it went way down in December, in January and February when we returned, and then started going back up towards the end of February and into March. And so what we did want to know is, you all to know, is that we looked into this, and we targeted level in schools and saw that this wasn't necessarily widespread, but there was a few schools that we would consider to be hotspots. This could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe a certain friend group had a significant amount of conflicts that we really needed to drill down to resolve, or maybe just other things going on within that school community. And when this happens, what we want you to know is that we first try to handle this at the school level. Depending on the significance of the conflict, we try to handle those on an individual basis. And if it's something bigger, then we work really closely with our safety and risk. Or if it's something serious, we work closely with our safety and risk to make sure that we are resolving the conflict, keeping kids safe, and holding kids accountable for their behavior. But what we want you to know that safety is of our utmost priority. So this is what happens when we do see fights or physical aggression or conflicts that could result in physical aggression. We work closely with our school administrators. They try to do conflict mediation to prevent, and we try to put safety plans in place. And in the event that there is a conflict, we always try to do or fighting and aggression. There will be discipline. And then we'll put a safety plan in place that is where conflict resolution occurs to make sure that we are keeping kids safe. And in our tier 3 or tier 4 situations, we're going to definitely work with safety and risk. And depending on the significance of the conflict, we might even adjust our security presence in school to make sure that we're keeping all kids safe.
All right, with that, I'm going to give Grace a few minutes to talk. She's going to talk about a couple things.
All right, so
yeah,
you
go.
All right, my first thing I'm going to talk about is our safety series. So our final safety series was on March 30th, and that focused on student voices. Students included a pretty diverse student body, from representatives from West, McKay, South, Sprague, and even Judson Middle School. The session was moderated by Emily and Mike Green, Common Ground Discussion on Race, who facilitated several discussions around the country. The panel was asked, how would we want our school environments to be? And for those of us who were seniors, we were asked, what legacy would we want to leave students coming through Salem-Keizer? So the themes and student responses included equity in learning, meaning meet students where they are. Schools need to be a sense of comfort and acceptance. Schools need more interactive group environments to eliminate segregation, and students need to feel a sense of belonging so they can be curious in an inclusive environment. Students often feel alone, so this student had suggested that upper class mentoring could be a solution, as well as pairing students with mentors can help intergenerational inspiration. Being valued by genuine class rankings can devalue a student. We need to allow students to be who they are regardless of the pathway they choose. Sense of connection and focus on self-like in elementary school. Inspiring and exciting, having more of that in today's traditional school environment. More diversity among staff, have someone who looks like me and understands me. Diversity is key, understanding and discussing what is going on in the world around us, and mental health supports. Make sure to give voice to the voiceless. And the last one was sense of encouragement and cheering others on. Some kids don't have supports at home. And I see a hand raised, I don't know.
I got to watch that, so I really appreciate the summary is presented very well. Thank you, Grace, for sharing the voices of our students. Director Hyen, question.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for the superintendent. After one of your reports, so how are you protecting the mental and physical security of students, especially specifically females, who have been victims of sexual assault when it comes to bathrooms and locker rooms?
I'm assuming that's unrelated to the transgender policies, or are you linking the two?
It could be related. It could not be related. It could be either way. But, you know, a victim of rape, which I am, I don't want to share. I might be more concerned about sharing a bathroom with somebody else, if you can understand. So, you know, we have kids who have been victims of sexual assault in our schools. I want, you know, we want the transgender youth to feel safe, included, and welcome, correct? How do we afford the same thing to students who have been victims of sexual abuse to make sure they also feel safe and cared for?
So I think the answer is there's lots of different ways. There are even the unisex bathrooms in every school that even a student who was not a transgender student could access. Generally, if we've had a student that has been a victim of some sort of sexual assault, they generally will work with their school counselor to figure out what is the plan for them. So if we have students that have been victims of some sorts of sexual assault, they should really check in with their school counselor first, so we can put whatever, not as much safety measures, but make them the way that they would feel safe in school. Because there are all kinds of different situations. And then Suzanne or Ethan or Olga, anything to add there?
No, just want to reiterate what you shared, which is if students have safety concerns for whatever reason when it comes to bathrooming, they work closely with the counselor and or school administrator, and we put a plan into place, which could be using a unisex bathroom.
Thank you.
Could we ask Grace to share where she's been accepted to college? Could we just do a quick little celebration for Grace? I thought you were getting away without that.
So next question.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
So Grace, could you share with where you've been accepted?
I heard back on, like, let's see, March 31st is like when I got most of my acceptances. I've been accepted into Duke, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Dartmouth, and then I got waitlisted at UPenn and University of Chicago. So all good schools. Like, I'm not mad at going to any of them. All I really know is that I want to go into like law, child welfare, social work, something like that. Anything in that realm. So I'm excited. I don't know where I'm going to be next year, but I have some choices.
That's very impressive, Grace. Very
Thank
proud of you. Your family must be very proud. Thank you.
Well, they are. I saw her dad this last week who yelled at me from his car.
We were in the car. I said, you probably shouldn't be yelling at people like that, especially the superintendent.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Director Chandagiri.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Superintendent and Dr. Udasinata. I have an important question regarding a sense of connectedness and the rise of discipline problem. You know, whether we are talking about children who are, with LGBTQ+, I think the central issue is a sense of connectedness. Once they feel a sense of connectedness, then it brings down the risk, the suicide risk, or all kinds of risk. Now, for children, there are three areas of feeling connectedness. One is the school, one is the peers, one is the family. All three areas of connectedness are very critical during the entire developmental stage. So, you know, this policies has caused a lot of up and down in our community. I'm not going to rehash all that. Moving forward, what are some of the steps we can take to make sure these three areas are included? Family, because ultimately, the child has to still feel sense of connectedness when they go home. You cannot escape that. The risk keeps going up if they don't feel a sense of connectedness and acceptance. So important to include family. Second thing with the peers. And third thing is the sense of connectedness in the school. So according to the developmental stage or age things, I tried my best. To be honest, I didn't go line by line of everything in the policy. Is there a place in the policy which really takes into consideration the family piece? Granted that we may not be experts as teachers, staff, etc. We may have to get somebody else to help with that, working through those very difficult relationships, times. We may have to refer somewhere else. But is that going to be part of the plan to ultimately have the child feel comfortable, or at least get the family to feel comfortable in that piece of relationship? Because if you miss one of those three legs, it's going to be risk is not going to go down. Simply school alone is not enough. Simply friends alone is not enough. But even the family has to be included. I couldn't find it. Maybe there is a place in the thing, and maybe there's a plan in place for how families will be included. If we have to get some outside counseling or psychology, social work, or somebody to help with that. Is that part of this plan? Have we budgeted for that? Have we got a referral mechanisms put in place? That's the question I want to ask. If you don't have an answer today, it's okay, but moving forward, this is going to take time for us to figure this out, but we have to have that piece.
So I'll just make a couple comments. First of all, we've had multiple kids transition. And for younger kids, often that's the first place that happens is the parent comes in. But we also have to remember that statistic from Marion County about the risk to houselessness. So we also have kids that don't have that are homeless who are potentially transitioning. So of course, anytime there's always the hope to get the connection with family, but that is not always the case for all of our kids, that we can do that.
Yeah, thank you. It is a bigger question, Director Chandagiri, that you're asking. And I would just say, for the sake of time and the very packed agenda that we have, I would encourage us to seek education opportunities to understand the challenges that our LGBTQ2Q plus students face when they come out, especially to the parents. Statistics show it's not a positive thing, which leads to houselessness. But that's a different topic, and we could discuss offline from the studies I have, courses that I've taken as well. And as an ally to the community, I'll be glad to share any information that I can pass on. So moving us forward, I would like to. I think that ends the reports, Superintendent. Is that correct? Okay. So moving on to our public comment section, unless any director needs a quick bathroom break. Okay, so let's take a 4-minute break. We'll come back and reconvene at 6:44. It is 6:44 and we'll get started. We've come to our public comment section of our agenda. We will allow 60 minutes. We know we have a larger number of people that registered to provide public comment, and I really appreciate that. Just want to reiterate, if we don't get an opportunity to call you, please submit public comment through written manners. You can also email the board directors, and the information can be found online. We want you to know that public comment is selected with action items from the agenda, comments on topics from the agenda item, and then non-agenda items. So pretty much kind of a random order, but related to the agenda. And we'll go ahead and call the first, get the first caller on the line.
Right, our first caller this evening is Maricela Lagos Garcia. Maricela, are you able to unmute?
Yes.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas noches, miembros de la mesa directiva escolar y superintendente Perry. Mi nombre es Maricela Lagos, soy la coordinadora del grupo de liderazgo de padres y madres de la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer. Como coordinadora del proyecto de organización de padres y del grupo de liderazgo de padres y madres, creo que siempre es una buena idea compartir las responsabilidades de liderazgo en cualquier comité o junta de la que sea parte. Además, brinda a los miembros del grupo más oportunidades para aprender las habilidades de liderazgo. Por lo tanto, la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer apoya esta nueva política. Esperamos que también brinden más oportunidades para que los miembros de la Junta con diferentes opiniones formen parte del equipo de liderazgo y puedan trabajar juntos para beneficiar a todos los estudiantes del distrito escolar. Gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening, members of the school board and Superintendent Perry. My name is Maricela Lagos, and I am the Parent Leadership Group Coordinator for the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality. As the coordinator of the Parent Organizing Project and the Parent Leadership Group, I believe that it is always a good idea to share the responsibilities of leadership in whatever committee or board you are part of. Also, it provides members of the group more opportunities to learn the skills of leadership. Therefore, the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality is in support of this new policy. We hope it also gives more opportunities for the board members of differing opinions to be part of the leadership team and can work together in order to benefit all of the students in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Our next caller is Olga Gonzalez. Olga, are you able to unmute? It'll be *6 on your phone.
Buenas noches, ¿me pueden escuchar?
Sí, buenas noches.
Buenas noches, gracias. Buenas noches, miembros de la mesa directiva escolar y superintendente Perry. Mi nombre es Olga González. Soy una madre del grupo de liderazgo de padres y madres de la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer. Quiero hacerles saber a ustedes y a todos los maestros del distrito escolar cuánto los apreciamos y sabemos lo mucho que han estado trabajando. Siempre hemos valorado el trabajo que realizan los maestros, las maestras y asistentes escolares. Antes que comenzara el confinamiento y con él la educación a distancia, lo valoramos mucho más. Al reconocer esta realidad de la pandemia, nos hemos dado cuenta de cómo los maestros y asistentes han sacado a relucir que en realidad son muy profesionales y competentes, pues se han enfrentado a grandes desafíos. Al compartir su quehacer educativo, siempre encuentran la mejor manera de expandir sus capacidades. Estar abiertos a comprender esta nueva realidad, reflexionar sobre esta de manera sistemática y enfrentar los desafíos que ya estaban ahí y han cobrado urgencia al hacerse tan visibles. Gracias, maestros y asistentes, por el ejemplo que están dando a la sociedad con su gran capacidad de trabajar con nuestros hijos en tiempos difíciles. Merecen nuestro aplauso y reconocimiento. Sabemos que los maestros no solo enseñan, sino que también acompañan. Y la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer ve y aplaude su gran labor. Vemos el esfuerzo que realizan. Nos impresionan sus ganas y compromiso con el desarrollo de nuestros hijos. Aplaudimos su esfuerzo por hacer sus clases divertidas y fructíferas. Admiramos el trabajo personal que hacen para poder darle a nuestros hijos un espacio seguro en el cual puedan expresarse. Al igual, reconocemos el gran trabajo que realizan detrás de cada clase para poder integrar a cada uno de los estudiantes. Y sobre todo, admiramos el cariño con el que llevan a cabo su trabajo. Sabemos que en sus corazones está que nuestros hijos tengan un gran futuro. Si continuamos en equipo, ustedes los maestros, los estudiantes y nosotros como padres y madres, lograremos el éxito académico de nuestros hijos y nuestras hijas. Gracias por su excelente trabajo.
Good evening, members of the school board and Superintendent Perry. My name is Olga Gonzalez. I am a parent in the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality Parent Leadership Group. I want to let you know that all teachers in the Salem-Keizer School District, how much we appreciate you and know how hard you have been working. We have always valued the work carried out by teachers and school assistants before the confinement began, and after distance learning education, we value it so much more. By acknowledging this reality of the pandemic, we have realized how teachers and assistants have brought out that they are actually very professional and competent as they have faced great challenges. By sharing their educational work, they always find the best way to expand their abilities. They are open to understanding our new reality. They reflect on it in a systematic way and face the challenges that were already out there and have gained urgency by becoming so visible. Thank you, teachers and assistants, for the example you are giving to society with your great ability to work with our children in difficult times. You deserve our applause and recognition. We know that teachers not only teach, but also accompany students and accompany the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality. We applaud your great work. We see the work and the effort you make. We are impressed by your desire and commitment to the development of our children. We applaud your effort to make your classes fun and fruitful. We admire the personal work you give to our children and how you make safe spaces in which they can express themselves. Likewise, we recognize the great work you do behind each of your classes to be able to integrate each of your students. Above all, we admire the affection in which you carry out your work. We know that this is in your hearts and our children have a great future because of you. If we continue as a team, you, the teachers, the students, and us, the fathers and mothers, can achieve the academic success of our sons and daughters. Thank you for your excellent work.
Great, thank you. Next caller.
Our next caller is Tyler Sayalo-Lakeberg, and she'll be joining us by Zoom.
Hello, good evening, Chair Vela, Board Directors, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Tyler Sayalo-Lakeberg. My pronouns are she and hers, and I am president of the Salem-Keizer Education Association. First, I want to speak to our 2,500 plus licensed staff educators regarding the Teacher Appreciation Proclamation. Thank you to all licensed educators for making it through a very difficult year. This year, we have navigated continued COVID protocols, extreme staff shortages, quarantine scenarios, and for many, giving up their planning time and other professional time to take on the role of substitute teacher. And yet, despite all of these issues, you showed up. You showed up for students with learning gaps due to COVID. You showed up for students dealing with the aftermath of their lives being turned upside down from COVID. You showed up for students with unregulated behaviors, phone addictions, and obsessed TikTok challenges like we've never seen before. You showed up even when your own family has endured loss, sickness, and stress throughout these hard COVID times. Thank you. We're almost done with the school year, but what comes next? As we look ahead, we need to rethink many of our practices. This shortage will continue. Students will continue to come in with challenging needs. Public education is the great equalizer, but our schools need help. Growing shortages, overwhelming and unrealistic expectations, and poor working environments were here long before COVID. However, COVID exposed these problems in ways that we can no longer cover up and ignore them. We didn't cause the issues facing public education across the nation, nor can we solve them. But we can rewrite the narrative for Salem-Keizer schools. To do this, school board directors, we need your help. We need you to partner with us, to listen to us. We need you to be asking with every new initiative and implementation, how were licensed educators included in this process? I have said for years, we need to do what is best for educators so our students can succeed. The idea that we would do what's best for students and yet bypass the very people serving students is not setting up anyone for success. We need to be making plans with educator input and do what is reasonable and sustainable. Our licensed educators have the expertise and relevant experience of how to best serve our students. Partner with us to build a stronger and better Salem-Keizer School District. We have the opportunity to forge a new path for public education in Salem-Keizer schools. Again, I thank all of our licensed educators for all that you do, and let's work together for a better future in education. Thank you.
Hey, Tyler.
Our next caller is Stephanie Hensey, also joining us by Zoom. Stephanie, are you able to turn on? There you go.
Yes. All right, good evening, Superintendent Perry, Chair Avila, and the school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Stephanie Hensey, and I've worked in the Salem-Keizer School District since 2007 as a teacher, instructional mentor, and now as a substitute. I support Teacher Appreciation Week. I know firsthand that teachers often do not have the support they need to teach well and keep students safe. One middle school staff wrote a letter to the district earlier this year expressing serious concern for their own safety. They came together, classified and licensed, union and non-union, and described their reality like this. Students roam the halls unworried about consequences. Vandalism is up and bathrooms are almost always closed. Staff members are verbally abused by students and they have to break up fights 3 or more times a week. Staff members have been threatened and their home addresses have been published online. Students have engaged in sexual acts in the building. The letter continues, our district's reactive approach that has led to eliminating SROs, ending the dress code, and pretending that COVID trauma is the root cause of the systemic failure has made our schools less safe. Among other things, they asked for at least 3 security officers. Their comment, we all know that higher visibility of security makes misbehavior less apt to happen. We need a reasonable dress code and real consequences for students, even minor infractions, because doing this will cut back on major incidents. If you really want to show appreciation for your teachers, please listen to them and return to a commitment to providing actual physical safety and supporting higher behavioral expectations so teachers can continue teaching. Secondly, I also support the proclamation that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We should do whatever we can to protect kids from the trauma caused by inappropriate, offensive, illegal behavior. But the timing is ironic because the newly released transgender policies fly in the face of that. Your policies say that biological boys can use the girls' restroom and locker room if that corresponds to their gender identity. I'm sorry, I work in middle schools. Are you crazy? This opens the door for all kinds of inappropriate behavior, abuse, and lawsuits. And what about the parent proclamation you passed in January? Your own document states that you will respect the parent-child relationship and are committed to supporting all parents and guardians to be informed and active participants in their children's education. Your new documents explicitly say that school staff will not disclose any information that may reveal a student's transgender status to others, including caregivers, unless certain conditions are met. These new policies are dangerous and offensive. Parents are the ones ultimately responsible for our children. They will still be our children long after they have passed through the halls of your buildings. You are out of line to consider keeping such a crucial conversation behind closed doors. When we do things that are upright and honest, there is no reason to hide our actions. What is done in secret will eventually be exposed. Finally, Superintendent Perry, your position and passion have changed dramatically since you first came to Salem-Keizer. Early on, PD and trainings focused on avid note-taking, reading, writing, math, and strengthening dual language programs. Even so, our district's math and reading scores were below 50 in 2019, before COVID. Under recent leadership, we've traded professional development for an overemphasis on emotions. This is a recipe for disaster, not just the short term, but especially the long term. I know your contract is up for renewal, and I urge the board to please consider academic data when determining whether you are the right leader for our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, our next caller is Cassidy Trout, also joining us via Zoom.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Cassidy Trout, and I'm a mom in Salem. Hello, board chair, directors, and superintendent, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to first state that I'm not in favor of the addition of a second vice chair. I would also like to support the Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation, all children must be protected. With that being said, I would like to speak about a meeting I had yesterday regarding the book Stamped for Kids that has been distributed to all elementary school libraries in our district. I followed the proper procedures and submitted a request for reconsideration of materials, as this book has numerous historical inaccuracies, only to have those procedures changed within days of asking for the proper forms. I was then invited to address a committee that had been formed to address my request. I questioned who would be on this committee and who would be at this meeting, and I was told I could not have the names of committee members ahead of time. But the committee would be in attendance to this meeting, as well as some district department heads and some district staff to take notes for a record. I asked if I would be allowed representation or somebody for support and was told no. I called my elected board director because I was appalled that I was being denied any support in this meeting. She was also alarmed and offered to come as support. Being an elected representative of the district, we both felt confident that she would be allowed to support her constituent. We were wrong, and they denied her entry into the meeting. I decided to brave it alone despite my serious anxieties and fears for having zero support. It couldn't be that bad, right? 5 or 6 people. I was ready for that. I could definitely do that on my own. I walked into the room and felt completely ambushed. There were approximately 20 people in attendance, including the press. I was never made aware that the press would be included. I went into complete panic mode. I was completely overwhelmed and could barely speak. I was prepared to speak to, a few community members, parents, students, but definitely not the press. I feel this was an act of intimidation, and it worked. I was adequately intimidated and probably visibly shaken. Now I know what to expect in the future. Our district needs to take our voices seriously. We are telling you that what is happening is not okay. Us parents are not okay with the things that are being taught, the things that are being pushed. It's your job to listen to us. I hope that you guys will continue to listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next caller is Yulisa Rodriguez. Yulisa, are you able to unmute?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Julissa Rodriguez, and I'm an educator in the district. And my comment today is in regards to the Child Abuse Proclamation and the Teacher Appreciation Week. So prior to becoming an educator, I had already graduated college. But anyways, before I started my teaching, I worked for about 10 years in the social work field, and specifically with children who have experienced a variety of abuse. And one of the most overlooked forms of child abuse is neglect, because it could be way less severe than other types. Again, can be, sometimes it's just as severe. But neglect has many forms. And one of the forms of neglect is not providing what children need. And I know it's really hard as a district to be able to satisfy everyone, but we are really neglecting our children by not having the proper therapeutic services for them in our district. That's drug therapy, mental health therapy. The counselors and us teachers cannot do it alone. I also know that it costs a lot of money to hire people because of the insurance and all the other stuff, but we really got to put our students first and put their health and their mental health first by getting these therapists in there. We have to reinvest those funds from the SRO so that we can get those needs for our children as they are showing forms of stress and trauma that they have experienced and that they're currently experiencing, because we know for a fact that our children are experiencing many types of abuse. So we need to have that in the schools, because it's a place that they are at every day, so it needs to be accessible to them, because the services that are available through Oregon Health Center, that is very limited also. So please reinvest those funds into services that our students need. And that would also help with the Teacher Appreciation Week. Like, okay, we're appreciated. Yeah, here's your little cards, but no appreciation more is that we need help with this thing. Also, I want to thank the district for providing support for our students who are trans. Very important that we support them. And anybody who does not support students who are trans should not be on school boards or in the classroom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Our next caller is Brian Steed. Brian, are you able to unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brian Steed, and I live in Salem, Oregon. I am in approval with the Child Abuse Prevention Awareness, and I do not support the addition of a second vice chair. I have been a substitute teacher in the Salem-Keizer School District for 10 years, as well as a high school girls basketball coach for 3 years, from 2015 to 2017, also in the district. I think it is ironic that you would support child abuse prevention, and yet, according to the new position of the district on transgender policy dated March 31st, 2022, tell your teachers, who are mandatory reporters, that they are not allowed to tell students' parents anything about a student who is transitioning or questioning their gender. This flies in the face of anything moral and ethical, and will be the demise of the Salem-Keizer School District. Not to mention, it puts educators in an impossible position. Why would you knowingly make it harder for your teachers to do their jobs? I think our teachers are amazing. An educator's role is to guide and teach the students, to partner with parents to give students the best possible education. You are undermining every bit of authority that belongs solely to parents, and are allowing teachers who potentially see hundreds of students per day to make a decision for a student whose cognitive brain is not yet developed, based on that teacher's own thoughts and beliefs, without consulting the student's parents. I am outraged. Not only that, but you have put female athletes in a very difficult position. They now have to compete against biological males who identify as a female, regardless of their strength and ability. Not only do biological females now have to compete against biological males and all that entails that, but they are required to allow their presence in the locker rooms. This is completely unsafe. This allows anyone who identifies as a female to enter a girl's locker room and open the doors for assault and abuse. This is not okay, and it should not be allowed to continue in Salem-Keizer. For the safety of our children, I implore you to remove this policy and practice from our district immediately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Next caller.
The next caller is Sandra. Sandra, are you able to unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Sandra.
My name is Sandra, and my pronouns are they, them, she, her. And I would like to express my public comment for agenda item, my support for agenda item 7A in support of the approval of Child Abuse Prevention Month. Every 47 seconds in the U.S., more than 3 million children are subject or of at least one child abuse case each year. Much of this abuse begins at home. Child abuse creates long life trauma. When we are abused at home, we are more likely to normalize abuse at a home, like at school. Transphobia and homophobia towards anyone, especially towards members of our family, creates long-term impacts through early childhood trauma that often marks our sense of selves, our ability to form meaningful relationships, and to feel empowered in our education and careers. Hence, parents and staff who openly display their transphobia, homophobia, and racism outside and inside our school grounds are being allowed to perpetuate emotional abuse on children who may already be experiencing other forms of abuse at home. Children's experiences, as children who experience this trauma and who are also often experiencing trauma through the systems they are part of, we are happy to hear that Salem-Keizer School District is taking important steps to address this abuse with the future implementation of protections for transgender and gender non-binary students, which include the use of facilities, participation in sports, and after-school or out-of-school activities, and gender-affirming education and support services. And somebody before me stated that it is unfair for girls to participate against boys in sports or supposedly biological boys. And I would say that as a former student of the Salem-Keizer School District who was actually an athlete and who participated in what is called, male-dominated sports, I never felt that I was less than or weaker than what people have suggested are biological males. And this is a harmful belief for our students and for anyone that identifies as a girl, regardless of who they are. So to fully support our queer, transgender, disabled, and BIPOC students, I also urge the school board to make the following additional recommendations. Reinvest a full $1 million of SRO funds to invest in the lives of students and divest from systems of policing, because Black and brown students are also queer and are also transgender.
Thank you, Sandra.
All right, our next call is Nayeli. Nayeli, are you able to unmute?
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Hello. Members of the school board, I'm a graduate from the Salem-Keizer School District and my pronouns are also they, them. And I'm calling in today to support the Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation and stand in support of policies that protect and support students of all gender identities, which include the loose demands previously stated as the reinvestment of the $1 million SRO funds from the failed SRO program. These funds should go to supporting students' mental health and well-being. Doing so would support the Child Abuse Proclamation and actually do something about it rather than just proclaiming to be against it. Systemic policing has harmed all students, especially BIPOC students, queer and trans students, students with disabilities, and immigrant students. So the funds cleared up from the SRO contract should go to help those students who most need it in the form of culturally responsive curriculum, staff, and mental health help, such as psychiatrists and counselors, which would also help survivors of abuse. I also support the youth-led demands for the resignation of transphobic white supremacist school board members Marty Hine and Daniel Bessel. Transphobia is child abuse. The school board cannot be anti-racist or support rights of students of all gender identities with these two on board. Our transgender students are not safe and not represented when having these transphobic racists on board, especially not when, according to the GLSEN, 75% of transgender students do not feel safe in schools. All students deserve to feel safe and welcome in their schools. Finally, we demand that the school board recommend Indigenous Peoples Day as a free school day for students and staff to be able to attend traditional events. Having to attend school on this day creates systemic barriers for Indigenous students to participate in cultural practices.
Thank you, Nayeli.
All right, our next caller is May. May, are you able to unmute? That'll be *6 on your phone. May, are you able to unmute? We'll go ahead and go to the next person and we can come back to May.
Go ahead.
1 second. Our next caller is joining right now. All right, our next caller is Levy Herrera Lopez. Levy, are you able to unmute?
Hi. Good evening. Good evening, Chair Avila, Vice Chair Carson Cunningham, Student Advisor Caldwell.
This caller is joining right now. Our next caller is Levy Herrera Lopez.
Apologies, sorry. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. My name is Levi Herrera Lopez. My pronouns are he, him, él, or my name. I'm speaking to you tonight as a community member to tell our LGBTQ plus students that there are many of us in this community that want you to feel safe and welcome in our schools. We don't want you or any student to be bullied for any reason, whether by your peers or by adults. And we do hold so much love for you. I cannot know what you are feeling when you hear the hateful speech that you heard from parents tonight, that you've heard on social media, that you've heard even from some board members and even so-called religious leaders. As a parent, I don't want any children to be the victim of such hate. Sadly, many people in our community have chosen to speak up for the first time in their lives. And it's very sad that they've chosen hate as the motivating issue to do it. It is okay to not know how to react to new ideas. It is okay to not always be perfect. It's okay not to have the right words, but to say to anyone you do not exist or I reject your right to exist as you choose is hateful. It is not a difference of opinion. It's just hate. We've also unfortunately heard board members say to the press that they don't want their kids forced to see other people for their gender, their race, their sexuality, or any of that. And we even had a few board members vote against the equity and inclusion resolution. And this incident has also reminded us that not all administrators are in support of equity and inclusion, because it was administrators who shared this with anti-LGBTQ plus activists. I personally cannot trust a person to support students of color or all students if they also hold hatred and fear in their heart for LGBTQ plus students. Just 2 weeks ago, we had an event where thousands of attendees clapped to anti-Semitic, transphobic, and anti-democracy messages held in Keizer. Some of them attended the protest earlier this week, and some of them maybe even speaking here tonight, but some of them also mobilized people to speak to you tonight. As the leadership of our district, the school board, cabinet, and administrators, you're responsible for ensuring every child feels safe and welcome, regardless of who they are individually. You have said that is your job, and I encourage you to ignore this anti-LGBTQ plus activist. And if I can share a message of hope, is that board members are voted in and out. And hopefully any administrator or staff who embraces hate can see their way to find a place somewhere else that embraces them for it. Unlike years ago, there are many people in this community ready to stand up for you to make sure that you feel safe and welcome, and that we are the city of shalom, of peace that we say we are. So let's act like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Levi. Next caller.
Yeah, let's go ahead and try May one more time. May, are you able to unmute? It'll be *6 on your phone. All right, we'll go ahead and go to the next caller. It's going to be Dr. Annie Snow. Annie, are you able to unmute?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Wonderful. I appreciate this opportunity to share. My name is Dr. Annie Snow. My pronouns are she, her. I am a suicidologist and counselor in private practice. My suicide research has been published in psychiatric services, health and social work, LGBT health, and more. And I am present this evening to voice my support for school policies that affirm and recognize the dignity of trans and gender diverse students. I've heard a few individuals suggest that trans and gender diverse folks would somehow assault other students in bathrooms, and there's absolutely no data that supports that, none whatsoever. So to suggest that is really transphobic and completely unfactual. So I'd like to move away from feelings that are rooted in fear and talk about actual facts. In the superintendent's presentation, we heard that over half of transgender and gender diverse youth attempt suicide. And research also reveals that 9 out of 10 contemplate suicide. These statistics are not just numbers on a page for me. Every day I work with youth who have survived a suicide attempt as a result of being told, often by a parent or a caregiver, that who they are is unacceptable. There is some good news though. there are things that we can do to mitigate these astronomical suicide rates. Research consistently finds that LGBTQ young people report lower rates of attempting suicide when they have access to affirming spaces. And this is critical since only 1/3 of LGBTQ youth report living in an affirming household. Specifically, LGBTQ youth who have at least one affirming space have a 35% reduced odds of reporting a suicide attempt. The strongest association being an LGBTQ affirming school. So let's continue to uphold policies that recognize the humanity and value of trans and gender diverse students, because their lives quite literally depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Snow.
Hi. May was able to unmute, so May, go ahead.
Hi, my name is May. I'm calling in support of the full implementation of protections laid out for transgender and gender non-binary students, which include the use of facilities, participation in sports and after-school or out-of-school activities, and gender-affirming education and support services. And this intersects with the full investment of SRO funds into systems like mental health, culturally and gender-affirming education, resources, and activities. And I demand that these funds are not used for any forms of systemic policing, including security and surveillance. I support the school make Indigenous Peoples Day a school off day or a free school day for all students, that Indigenous students and educators can participate in cultural activities. Not allowing them to do so is racist and upholds a system based on colonization. If we want BIPOC students and trans and queer students to feel and be safe, bigoted school board members like Marty Hine and Daniel Bethel must resign. There's no place for that in our community. Both school board members belong and play leadership roles in far-right organizations and have harassed and endangered the lives of marginalized communities. I would also like to make the note that transphobia is a form of child abuse. And it's also just wrong for like the people who are trying to say that, you know, women, trans women assume that they would assault other people in the restroom. That's just wrong and is not factual and is extremely transphobic and messed up and just wrong. Also, Ito, check your emails. My peer Landra sent an email. Please check them. Bye.
Thank you, May. Next caller.
Our next caller is Bobby Rogers, and looks like Bobby is here.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Bobby.
Good evening, Superintendent Perry, Salem-Keizer School Board members, and concerned citizens. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Bobby. I've been a Salem-Keizer resident most of my life, and I've attended the public schools here. My children were part of the Salem-Keizer public schools, and now my grandchildren are. The Salem-Keizer School District is implementing these new transgender policies without staff or parental input. This is not putting our kids first, and despite the nice language, I believe it's actually abusive to the students. The new policies state that parents will not be notified if they have gender dysphoria. It also states that the school will provide a detailed transition plan for students, again, without the parents' knowledge. This is outrageous. Parents and students go together. Kids need their parents, and parents need to be involved in every decision that affects their child. There are numerous studies that show relationship between the child and parent is the best indicator of student success. Therefore, you ought to be promoting the parent-child relationship, not undermining it. We all want every student to belong and be successful, but these new policies are already creating chaos and harm to the students. In fact, the students have been operating under these policies for the last few years, and there's reports of some students that have quit communicating with each other because they are afraid to use the wrong pronouns and getting in trouble for it. You are focusing on the wrong thing. You cannot create a sense of belonging by dividing kids and labeling them. Schools are designed to teach excellence, to raise the bar of education in reading, writing, math, and critical thinking. Gender identity does not fall into one of these academic categories. By implementing these policies, you are acting outside your scope of practice by replacing excellence with equity, and it is clearly not working. Student violence is up and accountability is virtually non-existent. The Waldo staff wrote you, Superintendent Perry, about the trauma and lack of safety at their school, begging you to make kids accountable. Your own data shows that a sense of belonging is down 30 to 35% in all categories. Suspensions are more than double it has been over the last 10 years. And half of the staff and students have already expressed desire to quit teaching altogether. I would like to leave you with this one final thought. CDC's explanation for child abuse is series or acts of commission or omission by a parent, caregiver, or another person in custodial role that results in harm. I hope you will take into consideration these new policies.
Thank you, Bobby. Next caller, please.
Our next caller is Alex B. Alex, are you able to unmute? It'll be *6 on your phone. We'll work on getting the next caller in. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
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 Go ahead and get started.
Hello, my name is Andrew. My name is Alex B. I am a Salem. Hold on, let me start. Hello, my name is Alex B. I am a student in Salem-Keizer district. I've seen teachers take away bathrooms from people that identify as trans or non-binary. It isn't right, but it isn't right that y'all ain't providing those things because students deserve to feel safe and welcome. These policies for trans and non-binary students connects to
Looks like we lost Alex. Emily, would you like to get the next caller online, please?
Yeah. Our next caller is going to be Santos Martinez. Santos, are you able to unmute? It'll be *6 on your phone.
Hello.
Go ahead, Santos.
My name is Santos, and I support transgender students and people who identify as LGBTQ. I fully support implementation of protecting lanes out for transgender and gender non-binary students, which include that uses of facilities, participation in sports, and after-school or out-of-school activities, and gender-affirming education and support services. I also urge the school board and school districts to address the school-to-prison and deportation pipeline under this plan, which includes defunding systemic policing and reinvesting systems of wellness. Also, Indigenous Peoples Day should be a free day for our students and staff. Our district should give spaces for cultural practices as well as the freedom for students to attend community events that empower them. In the past, Christy Perry said they recommended kids to Marion County Health Services, but what we need is a hallway or even a building dedicated to mental health services and invest into the youth in the district. Just like how you invested in police, those thousands of dollars should have dedicated to be mental health specialists. The fact that we have 12 psychologists and 4 are bilingual out of thousands of students in this district is unfair to the youth who are struggling with their mental health. Oh yeah, Ethan, check your email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next caller is Isabella. Isabella, are you able to unmute?
Yeah. My name is Isabella Gapo. I'm a Salem community member and a former student of the Salem-Keizer School District, and I would like to express my support for the school district policies that protect, uplift, and empower our BIPOC students and our transgender and queer students. I also support demands that students of color activists and the LUCE organization members have put forward that call for the reinvestments of the $1 million and SRO funds. $600,000 has already been used to support other systems of policing. Police officers in schools perpetuate a school-to-prison pipeline that disproportionately affects students of color. This money could and still can be used instead to support the mental and physical health and educational success of Black, Brown, Indigenous, queer, and transgender students, students with disabilities, and immigrant students. Finally, I urge the board to recommend that our school district make Indigenous Peoples Day on October 12th a free school day so that Indigenous students, educators, and staff can attend cultural ceremonies and celebrations that represent their communities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella.
Okay, we're letting in the next caller. The next caller will be Roberto Garces Mendez. Roberto, are you able to unmute?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Roberto.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Tlazolteca. I'm sorry. And I refuse to provide further information because of the very palpable presence of white supremacy and white supremacists here at the school board meeting. First and foremost, I would like to declare my complete and unwavering support for transgender, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, non-binary youth in and around the Salem-Keizer School District. I support the full implementation and continuation of protection laid out for transgender and gender non-binary students. This support includes, but is certainly not limited to, the free use of school activities, participation in sports, participation in after-school and out-of-school activities, and gender-affirming education with special attention to support services for our youth. It is no coincidence that the people that are against these protective measures and further actions to protect our youth are the same people who wept for the end of mandatory masking, who cried to resist comprehensive and culturally competent education, and who bawled because the board removed SROs and called for the restoration. These are the biggest snowflakes I've ever seen. In a word, people that are emboldened by the school board by way of Daniel Bessel and Marty Hine, who not only agree with them, who actively support alt-right ideologies and alt-right violence against transgender and gender non-binary youth. Daniel Bessel and Marty Hine are not the only figureheads. It is also the people that sit next to them, including Oswaldo, Ashley, Karina, and Maria, who do nothing to resist this homophobia, transphobia, racism, ableism, or any other form of oppression. Now, more than ever, is the time to act to protect and reinforce the policies for our marginalized youth. Complacency in an oppressive system is no different than supporting said oppressive system. There's also no coincidence that Superintendent Chrissy Perry decided to use $600,000 from the $1 million fund from SROs to increase surveillance and continue policing through security specialists. The intersection between transgender and gender non-binary youth, alongside the racialization or the racialized school-to-prison pipeline, exists here in Salem-Keizer and everywhere else. It is your job to end this pipeline. This is why I demand to the school board to do two actions. One, uphold and develop more comprehensive measures to protect transgender and gender non-binary students. And two, reinvest the full amount of $1 million from the SRO funds to institute mental health supports, culturally responsive and competent and gender-affirming teachers in education, gender-affirming facilities, and improved after-school and out-of-school programs, and much, much more. Lastly, I support the day off for all students to support Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay, our next caller is Angelique Prater. Angelique, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me? Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hello,
my name is Angelique, and I will not be saying any more information about myself due to the fact that there are white supremacists on the school board and watching this meeting. I'm testifying today in support of transgender, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, and non-binary youth in our school district. Adults on the right are dedicating their time to harassing these youth in the district that do not align with their colonial notions of gender and sexuality. I support the new policies being adopted to uplift transgender students more in our schools. However, these policies are not all that can or should be done to support transgender youth in this district. Luz has been advocating for the full reinvestment of the $1 million from the terminated SRO contract since last year. However, Christy Perry decided to invest $600,000 of those $1 million into systemic policing via security specialists. Systemic policing is detrimental to students of color and low-income students, especially when those same students are also transgender or non-binary. A national survey by GLSEN found that 75% of transgender students do not feel safe in schools as they are bullied for their identities by peers, staff, and authorities. The same survey also found that when transgender students submit reports for bullying in schools, they are rarely taken seriously. This means that the current forms of policing are not serving transgender students along with the students of color and low-income students who are simultaneously targeted for the way they look by these same policing authorities. There is an incredibly big link between the school-to-prison pipeline and LGBTQIA youth. Another survey found that 20% of all youth in juvenile facilities are LGBTQIA, and of those youth, 85% of them are youth of color. Using these national statistics, the school board and Superintendent Christy Perry are directly placing transgender and students of color onto the school-to-prison pipeline with these security specialists. Transgender youth and youth of color deserve more than this. They deserve a school environment where they can thrive. They deserve to feel safe, and they are currently not being supported in this way. In order to achieve this, the entire $1 million needs to be spent uplifting students from marginalized communities, not systematically targeting them. These funds should be spent on mental health supports, culturally responsive and gender-affirming teachers in education, and gender-affirming facilities as well. If this school board and superintendent does not reinvest these funds immediately, they are promoting racism, transphobia, homophobia, xenophobia, and ableism in the school district. It is your job to uplift these communities entirely, which you have not been. Now is the time that Ashley, Osvaldo, Karina, and Maria do what you said you would do. Beyond this, Marty Hayen and Daniel Bethel must resign. They do not create a safe space for transgender or students of color. Daniel Bethel has been quoted publicly spewing transphobic and racist rhetoric. Marty Hayen is a part of the alt-right and a member of the 3%ers who are openly transphobic and racist. Additionally, I support the demand for a day off of school for all students to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. And Atone, please answer your email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Our next caller is Marie Hernandez. Marie, are you able to unmute?
Hi. Hello. Good evening, members of the school board and Superintendent Perry. I would like to first request before saying anything else that the directors who are constantly texting during board meetings put their phones away. Thank you. My name is Abigail Marie, and I'm a parent of a special needs kindergartner. Congratulations, Grace, on your acceptance into colleges. That's very exciting. I would like to ask the board not to vote for a second vice chair. And if you do vote for a second vice chair, I would like to recommend Dr. Satya Chandaguri. Over the last 8 months, it has become painfully aware that the school board is dysfunctional. 4 of the members do not communicate with the other 3, and the school board chair does not acknowledge nor respond to emails and openly disrespects Dr. Satya in public meetings. I want your legal team to take note. The recent transgender affirmation policies that are in place that, according to the diversity director, have been in the works for 3 years are in direct violation of U.S. Code Title 20, Chapter 31, Subchapter 3, Part 4, number 1232H, where it says, limits on survey analysis or evaluations. No student shall be required as part of any applicable program to submit to a survey analysis or evaluation that reveals information concerning political affiliations or beliefs of the student or the student's parent, mental or psychological problems of the student or the student's family, sex behavior or attitudes without the prior consent of the student if the student is an adult or an emancipated minor, or in the case of an unemancipated minor without the prior written consent of the parent. This means that you can't be asking our kids any of these questions that are on the gender spectrum survey. It is a survey. If you go through and you look at it, it is a survey. It also says in the code Development of local policies concerning student privacy, parental access to information, and administration of certain physical examinations to minors. Development and adoption of local policies, et cetera, et cetera. It basically says the right of a parent of a student to inspect, upon the request of a parent, a survey created by a third party, which is your gender spectrum party survey. You also have a policy EL-3, which states the superintendent shall not fail to appropriately involve stakeholders in the advisory capacity in important issues which impact them directly. The superintendent shall not fail to provide timely notice to parents and students about decisions that affect them, especially program changes, school assignments, and calendars. The superintendent shall not fail to take responsible steps to inform stakeholders of these policies that affect them. Shall not fail to involve stakeholders when key policies are developed. According to your diversity director, you spent 3 years developing policies that directly impact our children without involving parents or the school board. According to the U.S. Code, you must inform annually of any policy changes or procedures that directly impact parents of students that you serve. I suggest you revise these policies immediately before you face lawsuits. Thank you. I would also like to say, I find it.
Thank you, Abigail.
All right, next caller is Luis. Luis, are you able to unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Luis, and my pronouns are he and his. And I want to start this testimony by saying that I support the policies that will protect and uplift students of all gender identities. We must especially support our trans and our non-binary youth who oftentimes have intersectional identities. You know, they are BIPOC youth as well, and they deserve to feel safe and comfortable throughout their time at school. Second, I support the full reinvestments of $1 million previously used on SROs to be allocated on students' culturally proficient education and mental health support services. This is important because we don't need systems of policing and security. If we want to talk about our queer youth, we really need to take into consideration how damaging the police are, how damaging the security is, and how even staff and administration criminalize and oppress our youth. We also need to take into consideration how critical and important mental health support services are, how important counseling and psychology is. And third, Daniel Bethel and Marty Hine must resign as school board members. You all don't do anything positive for this administration nor for our youth, and all y'all do is just take up space in your positions. The rest of the school board, Osvaldo, Ashley, Karina, and Maria, you all need to keep holding Marty and Daniel Bethel accountable for their racism, for their homophobia, and for the damage that they do at our schools. At the end of the day, Marty and Bethel are just racist and transphobic. That's the mentality that they both carry, and we don't need to continue them as public officials. Lastly, I wanted to make a public ask to the school board, and I say public because I want everyone who's tuning in to listen, but we need the school board to make Indigenous Peoples Day, October 11th, a non-school day that is free for all students. This brings me to the proclamations that you all passed last year. This brings me to the land acknowledgement that you all did at the start. But if you want to honor Indigenous peoples, you need to honor your word, and you need to do your part in promoting safe and welcoming schools, do your part in upholding the equity lens, and do your part in supporting youth who are at the forefront of all of these demands. And then lastly, Edon, check your email. We sent you one, and that is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next caller is Hannah. Hannah, are you able to unmute?
Yes, I'm here. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Did you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, good evening, city school board. I'm Hannah Shooting Bear. I'm a city. I live here in the city of Salem. A former parent of Salem-Keizer kids. But I'm coming on tonight to talk about what all I've heard this evening. As a Native American, and all has been heard and has been spoken, I'm coming as saying, listen, we as Native Americans Our children are sacred. And you're passing this protection. And remember, we're the ones that welcome you guys. And our brothers and sisters from the South and the North were already here with us. So think about that. We have atrocities. Our boarding school students that we're dealing with now. And how about our Native students in the school system now? We're thinking about them too. Keep our children safe, regardless of what their choice is. Because in our culture, they're considered two-spirited. We welcome them as well, and we protect them as well too, regardless. So when you come to thinking about these monies and everything, we need the mental health. Our mental health in the state is already broken. Why start bringing it back into our schools? That's where it starts. Like I said, I was a former mother of students of Salem-Keizer, and my daughter was one of those broken children that you guys couldn't deal with mentally. So please think about it. As a Native American and as a parent, a former parent of the Salem-Keizer area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody taking the time to sign up, and I apologize again that we don't have the time to get through more individuals to continue to speak and share your thoughts with your school board members in the district. I do urge you, though, however, that there's other avenues for you to provide comments. Please email us and provide written comment as well. We appreciate it. We are going to take another quick little break. So we'll see you at 7:50, another 4-minute break. our meeting tonight. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is our action items. And I'll ask the Superintendent Perry for an introduction to our Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation.
Right, in your agenda tonight is the Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation. I don't think I could give any additional comments other than what we heard in the superintendent's report tonight. We are committed as a district to the reporting and prevention of child abuse at every turn. And we want to restate that commitment with you tonight. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Avila.
Director, thank you. Director, Vice Chair Carson Cunningham, may you please read the proclamation?
Yes, thank you, Chair Avila. Child Abuse Prevention Proclamation. Whereas the health and viability of our community is dependent upon the investment in our most vulnerable children, and whereas in 2020, there were 11,642 reported victims of child abuse and neglect in Oregon, of which 1,434 were victims lived in Marion and Polk counties combined. And whereas we encourage all members of the community to become aware of the issues involved in the prevention of harm to young people so that the next generation will be safe, strong, and successful. And whereas by strengthening families and providing safe, stable, and nurturing environments that are free from violence, abuse, and neglect, opportunities are created for children's optimal growth and success, ensuring a secure future for our communities, where the needs of children are a priority and the needs of families are met. And whereas passage of Senate Bill 415, effective January 1 of 2020, added school board directors to the list of mandatory reporters of child abuse. And whereas Board Governance Policy 4, Board Member Code of Conduct states, board members acknowledge their responsibility as mandatory reporters of child abuse and will educate themselves on requirements through district trainings and/or other means. And by doing so, board members demonstrate their individual and collective commitment to the safety of children in our community. Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of Salem-Keizer School District 24J asks everyone to join together in protecting our children and does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Thank you for letting me read the proclamation. This is an issue near and dear, I think, to all of us. I used to volunteer as a court-appointed special advocate for children, and this is just, I'm so glad that we could have Marion County come talk about this work and that we can join together as a board tonight to honor this month and protect all of our kids.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carson Cunningham. Can I entertain a motion?
I do.
Director Chandigiri motions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Director Hyen seconds. And do we have a discussion? Seeing no discussion. Oh, Director Chandigiri.
Yeah. And I'm glad that school board directors are also mandatory reporters, because oftentimes parents write to us about the safety of their children or what they've gone through. Or sometimes we become aware of what goes on, whether it's inside the school or children are in harm's way. Even if somebody has, you think someone else has reported, I think it is, at least my practice is to go ahead and report again. I'm also a physician in town, right? So sometimes you can have more than one report, because that way we make sure that no child should ever be in a position of being harmed. Oftentimes, by the time it comes to light, a lot of times they have been harmed. There are so many missed opportunity. So I really think we need to take this seriously. And even if we think somebody else has been reported, I feel we have a responsibility, because to me, child abuse can become a never event in our community. It is well within it is a human being related things. We can all work together to make it a never event so that all our children have the ability to have safe, stable, and nurturing experience. And we need to commit to that. We need to go through the spirit of that Senate bill rather than assume somebody else. A lot of times people fall between the cracks. So I would be supporting this, and I urge all my fellow board directors, never assume somebody else has reported. Go ahead and do what is important. You can save a life, you can make a difference.
Thank you, Director Chandigiri. Any other firm comments? Okay, seeing none. Let's take a vote. All in favor of passing the proclamation, raise your hand. I see all directors raising their hands, including the chair. No nays, motion passes. And I do just want to say thank you to everybody for passing this. And this also takes recognition of abuse is not just physical, it's also emotional and social and visible through actions that we do not take or that we do take, even through social media comments, likes that are hurtful and damaging to our students and others. So just please keep in mind. Thank you. Moving on to our Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation. Superintendent Perry, may you please introduce this item?
Yeah, so I do want to do just a huge appreciation to our licensed educators tonight as we introduce this proclamation. I was touched by two things. One, the testimony from our parent leaders at the coalition. And I am thinking that that would be great for us to send on to every licensed educator. And then also to our association president, Tyler, for her words tonight. We have been in times that none of us ever knew we'd been in, and our teachers have been on the front lines with our kids through that. So I see you, I know the load that all of you are taking on behalf of our students, and just my appreciations to each and every one of you each and every day in the way you show up for our kids. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. We'll ask Director Knowles-Pressey to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Chair Avila. Whereas education is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world, and whereas teachers and licensed specialists mold future leaders through guidance and education, and whereas this continues to be a challenging time to be a teacher in the history of public education, with the past year reaching crisis levels for student mental health issues, and whereas teachers embrace students of widely differing backgrounds, helping students connect to emotional and social supports, and whereas our teachers are committed to stopping at nothing to remove barriers to high quality education for all our 41,000 students, and whereas our country's future depends on providing quality education to all students and helping them to feel a sense of belonging, regardless of race, ethnicity, culture, gender, personal belief, and family values, and whereas teachers spend many hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing community service, and whereas our teachers are committed to in-person learning with greater enthusiasm and supports for students to keep them safe throughout these crucial times of the pandemic, regardless of the challenges or divisive issues that occur in our community or country, and whereas teachers have embraced the changing times, ups and downs throughout the pandemic, working extra hours filling in for colleagues during a time when absences and impacts to operations were felt due to the Omicron contagion, and whereas our teachers go beyond teaching to provide social and emotional learning and support the whole child, making more than 100,000 phone calls to connect with and care for our students and families, and whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers and specialists in educating the children of Salem-Keizer, now therefore the Salem-Keizer School District Board of Directors proclaims May 3rd through 7th, 2022 to be Teacher Appreciation Week, and encourages all members of our community to join with the board in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work.
Thank you very much, Director Knowles-Pressey. Can I get a motion for the Pell Commission? Director Carson Cunningham, Vice Chair Carson Cunningham motions. Do I have a second? Director Chandiguri has seconded the motion. Do we have a discussion? We'll start off with Vice Chair Carson Cunningham.
That again? Sorry.
A discussion. We'll start with you since you motioned.
Oh, I don't have, I just greatly appreciate our teachers beyond measure. I think the superintendent and individuals that testified from the coalition, Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality said the most beautiful things that I could never do justice to. So thank you to all of our teachers, and thanks for sticking with us and our kids.
Dr. Chandiguri.
Thank you, Chair. And I really want to say thank you, Superintendent, and thank you all the teachers. I come from a very ancient culture. In our culture, we believe teachers are held at the same high esteem as God. What they mean by that is, they're like the priests for the democracy of, where we take our children with young brains and hope in 12 years they kind of make them citizens of the world and citizens of our nation. So we hold them in very, very high regards and very high esteem in my culture. And I really think this proclamation is important, but doesn't go far enough. I really want to see that in the spirit of this proclamation, we really help our teachers sit on the same table and really design the, they have far more things to offer than sometimes we allow them to. And they can make a huge difference in our nation and in our children and having a thriving trajectory. We need to harness the full potential of what teachers can bring. And I really would like to see that kind of a system where teachers are in the driver's seat and they help design. It's almost like a personalized education for each and every child we take to school. And they should be free to do that. They should be free to help mold each and every child to have the best possible outcome. It is doable. I hope this leads to the kind of rethinking of our policies that allow teachers to be present in every committee, every place where they can help us. So with that, I'll be supporting this. And hopefully next year we can get better at keeping that as a yardstick where teachers are there in every level, designing our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now seeing other hands raised, I'll just also appreciate, give the thanks to all the teachers who are out there in this profession at the hardest moments at our times recently. I just really appreciate from the bottom of my heart. I want to express that probably on the behalf of the full board and administrators. We really appreciate all that you're doing, teaching our students, showing up, battling, battle after battle with our students, making sure that they are engaged and learning. And it's going to get better, like Tyler had said. We got to be prepared and be better to serve you all. We'll continue to strive for smaller classroom sizes. I know that's a very big topic, and hopefully we can get this done in the next coming years. So very much appreciate it. So all those in favor of this proclamation, please raise your hand. All directors have raised their hand. Motion passes. And we'll move on to our next agenda item. Which is to approve revision of board governance policies, addition of second vice chair to board leadership, BG 11 board operations, BG 9 board chair's role, BG 10 agenda planning.
Chair, I think we're just moving on to C.
Moving on to C. Oh,
no, I mean.
Yes, my apologies.
Yeah.
Adopt resolution number 2021-22-19, request from the city to Salem-Keizer School District taxing district. So I'm lost again. So Superintendent, Perry an introduction for this, and then I will also have some words. But if we have Scott, I believe he is maybe on the line. Scott, are you on the line for any potential questions?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, great. Superintendent Perry, would you mind introducing this?
Yeah, both Chair Avila and Vice Chair Carson Cottingham were asked to meet with Mr. Canton Wine to reconsider the Broadway LLC complex. So he has been engaged in conversation, and in the board packet tonight, you have a memo from Mr. Canton Wine about some of their goals as a company around affordability and their commitments moving forward as they bring this forward and ask you for the 10-year tax exemption. Remember, this did come to you in December, and so this is a reconsideration of that decision. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Avila, and then maybe if there's any clarification questions from Mr. Canton Wine tonight, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. As Superintendent Perry said, that Vice Chair Carson Cottingham and I did meet with Scott Canton Wine to discuss the Broadway 990 building in detail. We voiced our concerns about lack of affordable housing in our community, in particular our concern that teachers, support staff, and families getting priced out of the community. He came back with the attached proposal committing to controlling rent of all the units at this building, consisting of 5% rent increases for 10 of his 23 units and only 7% on the remaining for the length of the tax abatement. We really, truly appreciate his willingness to ensure that these units remain affordable for the length of the tax abatement, and we feel this commitment is in alignment with the board's priorities for the community. We are looking forward to working with the City of Salem to ensure these types of agreements are the commitments made by developers for all of these requests. It is the best way to ensure a wide range of integrated housing. Lastly, we look forward to hearing back from Scott and his company with updates around this agreement. And I'd just like to share that today, as I was in the Oregon's Talent Summit in Portland today, discussing the need for affordable housing so that our, those who are working in our workforce programs can afford livable housing with their wages that they're making into our cities to bring in the talent that we need to make our city vibrant and our economy strong. It's important that we continue to build affordable housing. That was shared across the Talent Summit today. So as I'll ask any director right now if they have any questions that they would like to ask Scott. Any concerns or further questions that you may have at this moment? Okay, I am seeing none.
Oh,
yes,
I have a question.
Yes,
Chair.
Director Chandigarh.
I want to ask Scott how long it took for you to get the permitting process, and compared to the cost of the unit, how much of the cost is spent on permitting and all the paperwork, and what percentage? I mean, you don't have to give me a dollar amount. What percentage is spent before you start cut the ground, and how much of it is spent on actual building, and what percentage is spent on these units? Because I hear various figures. In Portland, you spend a huge amount of money even before you can get the permit. In Salem, how is it? And how does it fit in with the housing needs survey, which talks about different types of unit is needed for our city? So if you can share some idea, then it'll give us a sense.
Thank you for the question. Just to clarify, we purchased the building after it was constructed. So we were not the original developer of the building. However, having been involved in other similar projects, I can tell you that those soft costs, the permitting, just from a monetary perspective, can easily represent 10, 15% of a project budget. That percentage is changing as obviously with supply chain challenges, the construction part is becoming that much more expensive. But it's not only from a monetary perspective, but from a time perspective, just the sheer amount of time to get from a pre-application standpoint up to final permitting can be years, and that's not an exaggeration. I was involved in one project at another property here in Salem. It was a very simple change of use on an existing structure, and that was almost a 12-month process.
Well, thank you very much, because that's another area we need to tackle. Sometimes if this kind of bureaucratic burden can not only, because each time you delay it, the cost of project goes up. Who knows what is going on? So we may have to also work with Salem City and perhaps whoever else is involved to make sure that we bring down some of these bureaucratic burden. That way we can have more units of different cost range in our thing. We need to also get the city should also do a survey to see what is our need versus what's our gap. Personally, I would like to see more mixed projects like this, where it's very close, transportation to shopping and healthcare, etc. And having visited Singapore and some cities in India. So because that is another piece, because there is no transportation to some of these places. So all those things have to be considered. So it's time for us to work with the city and everybody else be aligned around these issues. Thank you for coming and answering these questions.
Appreciate it, Director Chandagiri. Again, I just want to say that I was impressed the way that Scott really found a way to work with us and understand our very large concerns and made a commitment to provide affordable housing.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'll ask for a motion to approve, to adopt this resolution. Director Chandagiri motions. Do I have a second? Vice Chair Carson Cunningham seconds. Do we have a discussion? Not seeing any hands. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please raise your hand. I see all directors raising their hands. Adoption, so the resolution passes. Congratulations, Scott. And we'll move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your help throughout the process. And I think, as I stated in my memo, I think we've created a good model for creative problem solving and listening to people. And there's always room in the middle. So I appreciate it. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Again, I want to also just voice the leadership of Vice Chair Carson Cunningham on these discussions. Thank you again. Superintendent Perry, would you like to introduce item number 7D?
All right, I'm gonna, well, I'll turn it mostly over to you, but this is the second time this has come before you. This is the BG related to add the addition of a second vice chair. You heard it as a reading, I think about in January, and now it's coming back. I do not recall if there were a couple edits to it between that time and here. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. I'll take a motion, entertain a motion for this revision to approve this.
I'll motion first.
Director Guzman-Ortiz motions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Director Knowles-Pressey seconds. Do we have a discussion? Yes, Director Hyen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought the first person commenting tonight, Maricela, had an interesting comment, and I'm going to read it here, what I wrote. She thought it was good to have a second vice chair that would allow to have somebody on leadership with different opinions than the rest of leadership. But, and I thought that was kind of interesting, but I don't think that's what the plan is here. And I'm definitely a no vote.
Yes, Director Chandagiri.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking to myself, sometimes it's so hard for even if 3 board members propose an agenda to get it on the agenda. And I found it very helpful because, thank God we kind of worked it out for the dual language immersion to be on the agenda. 3 of us had really started initiating it. So by adding a second vice chair, is this going to be so top heavy? The board, just like our district, is very top heavy, that getting anything into the agenda would become that much harder. It's just a thought I'm having because, that's the kind of, it shouldn't become a barrier to that. All of us are your second vice chairs. All of us are your board directors. We are all willing to work and we are all willing to help you. So how having this looks like it's more board leadership centric rather than children centered policy. So it shouldn't kind of give a wrong impression to our community that board is only spending all the time thinking of what is convenient to them rather than are we centering these policies around children, equity, educators, etc. So it shouldn't give that kind of impression, which will make it harder for our community to say, are we building another fortress, top heavy, just like some people perceive? It's so difficult to get anything in. So I don't know what purpose it is going to. I tried my best to understand what purpose are we going to serve by having a second vice chair. We are not a huge committee like legislative committee. We are 7 of us, pick up the phone, like Ashley called me and I picked up the phone and talked. So what purpose are we trying to serve by this policy is not clear to me.
Director Chandigarh, I hear your thoughts, and as you've stated before, and as have elaborated on this role, on what it can do to build leadership. And if you read, and it's stated in the 4th paragraph of this policy change, it has no effect on agenda planning. They'll continue in rotation. And as I've always stated, since I was voted on to be board chair, that I'm willing to accept board agenda items through communications, through email, through phone, as text, the communication, right? So nothing has changed, and I feel like I've elaborated a lot, provided a lot of information in this policy change to be clear as possible. So
thank you for clarifying that, because I just wanted to make sure that everybody heard, because when I tried to talk to some folks, the first question came up was, what is it that we are trying to achieve by doing this? When any one of us can work on any topic you give us to work and research or do anything you tell us, we are willing to work with you. So the question should be more about how we can connect and communicate with each other. That's the reason I'm not convinced about that can be achieved by adding another layer. So I will not be supporting it, but I just wanted to hope that this leads to discussion about this. Otherwise, it'll be more of the same, confirmation bias rather than really having different perspective. That's my only worry. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of this change to the second vice chair, please raise your hand. I see Director Carson Cunningham, Director Guzman Ortiz, Director Nose Pressey, and Director Avila, all in favor. Those against it, please raise your hand. I see Director Bethel and Director Chandigarh and Director Hyen, sorry, apologize. In voting against it, 4-3, this passes. And I do just want to state on the record, board leadership will be appointing the second vice chair at a later date for the next meeting coming up this month. So thank you. So moving on to agenda item number 8, our consent calendar. Superintendent Perry, can you please review these items?
Yeah, and your consent calendar tonight is the acceptance of the grants, of course, approval of personnel actions. And then we did put approval of the Howard Street Charter contract under the consent calendar because you've heard from them a couple times and also you've seen the contract. So that's your consent calendar for this evening.
Thank you. Director Hyan?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent calendar with the exception of 8B that I would like to pull, please.
Okay. So
personnel actions, Mr. Chair.
I will second Director Hyan's motion.
thank you, Director Nose-Pressy. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote, right, on the two items of A and C. All those in favor of A and C, please raise your hand. I see all directors raising their hand, so items number 8 and A and C on the consent calendar passes. And do we have a discussion then on item number B? Director Hyan?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to note that the board received 36 resignations and 16 retirements this month. Compared to last year, the same month, we had 17 resignations and 8 retirements. And in 2020, 15 resignations and 9 retirements. I make a motion that we approve. I'm gonna vote for it. I just want to make sure people were aware. Sorry.
Any other further discussion on this coming to light? Yes, Director Chandigiri.
In one of the previous board meetings, I had raised this topic of using a restorative policy change in rehiring those who retired or left when we were going through that COVID vaccine, mask, and all those issues. And we said, can we rethink or change the policy, our human resources policy, so we can bring them back? They are our teachers, they are our children's teachers and our staff. So is there any way, because you can't have a school without teachers, that's obvious. I mean, we can talk about BIPOC teachers who look like me and you, but the reality is we can't be having this kind of attrition. So has there been any progress which will allow us to bring back some of the teachers who left using restorative practice of, or has there been any policy change in using restorative principles and rehiring those who left us?
So I'll just do a quick comment. The law hasn't changed around the vaccine mandate. The positions are open. We still are allowing medical and religious exceptions, but the law hasn't changed around the vaccine mandate at this point in time. I think it might be different at the state, but the educator one has not changed.
Have we changed any policy using restorative practice of at least keeping in touch with them? Can they work online? Because that way we can have our experienced teachers, and hopefully when in future, when the law changes, we can bring them in the campus. But restorative practice is also a phased practice. We may have to keep in touch with them. We have to work on restoring relationships in a graduated manner rather than wait for the law. That's how I understand. Maybe I'm wrong. It's a process of keeping in touch so that we can heal the wound.
For our online academy, we still have the vaccine mandate. And I don't know how to restore a relationship when I have a legal obligation to that. We've done some pretty good work with a couple people that needed specialized accommodations that ended up being at Edge. But the other part of it is we also have a collective bargaining agreement around transfers to our online academy. So our positions are open. If the law changes, good educators can apply and we'll welcome them back. I want what you want, which is experienced and amazing educators in our classrooms.
Thank you. And the vaccine mandate hasn't changed for the state either yet at this time. Director Noes-Pressy?
I just wanted to add that I really hope that we as a board can take our voices and actively lobby our state legislature to make sure that our schools are funded properly, and that as a district we can also ensure that our priorities are where we say that they are. And in just recently passing that proclamation of supporting our teachers, that, you know, we're really putting our money where our mouth is, and that our teachers are paid fairly, that all of our staff is treated with respect and dignity, and that we really strive to make sure that we're supporting them in their workloads, because our teachers really do bear the brunt of everything, not just in this pandemic, but in the shortages of access to supports and resources and materials and just everything. I know that to so many, I'm very much preaching to the choir, but I just want to make sure that while we're highlighting the level of teachers and valued educators that are leaving our district, that we are also highlighting that this is an issue that was boiling for the longest time and has finally just come to a head, where our teachers are burnt out and can no longer support.
Thank you for that.
Okay. So I guess we'll call a vote to approve. Director Hyatt? All those in favor, raise your hand. All directors vote yes. So the consent calendar is fully approved, and we are moving on. So we do have, just a reminder, we do have a reading of revision board governance policies to return to in-person board meetings, procedures to BG Board 11 Operations, BG 12, role of the Budget Committee. Again, those are just readings for tonight. Please submit any questions. Do want to thank, submit those questions to leadership. I do want to thank Director Beto, Noes-Pressy, and Guzman, Karina Guzman Ortiz, for the time that they took to meet, strategize, and moving forward so that we can return to in-person and welcome everybody back. And we look forward to that day. Director Beto, question?
I just had a question on the motion on 8B. I apologize. I didn't hear who the second was, just for the record, to verify that we have a full, complete process there.
We did have a second. Alice, did you capture that?
I seconded it.
And Maria, I think no.
Maria, okay, then Maria.
I think those two directors. Okay, so moving forward. Information standard reports are provided in written form. Again, the district provided monitoring data report through March 2022. We have our board meeting schedule in there as included. I do want to remind you that we have 2 more board meetings, both virtual. Special board meeting, a pre-budget information session at noon, a board meeting work session tomorrow at 6 p.m. with Vince Adams from OSBA. Reminder, these are standard reports provided in written form for the board's review ahead of the meeting, not as full presentations. The superintendent may have pointed to a couple of these reports in her earlier superintendent's report, or she may decide to quickly highlight something at this moment. I'll give her an opportunity.
Yeah, no, I had Ethan kind of highlight some of the behavior changes. The tricky part with restorative practice is you still have to have accountability, which is where you see some of those upticks in suspensions related to some escalated behavior that happened right before the break. And then I was going to remind you about your meeting schedule tomorrow, but you already did that.
Okay. And just to clarify, do we need to read the return to in-person board meeting procedures? Or that's just a task on it for individual, for the directors?
Yeah, I think only if there were comments or questions that you wanted to discuss as a board at this point, because you're at first reading. So if there's any discussion around those policies before you take them to a vote next meeting.
That's correct. So Director Chandigiri.
Yeah, I just want to bring the attention to the data that has been presented in the report. In the last 6 months, in less than 240 days, we have had over 5,100 or so major discipline incidents and over 3,200 suspensions. This is important for me and important for all of us, and this is all-time high. You know, we could certainly call it part of the COVID and the attachment issue, but we can say this is what happens. But you know, the way I'm looking at it is, unless we have a clear policy and the way we are implementing it, what is going on, it's not clear to me what has changed in terms of policy, practice, etc. In one of the previous board meetings, we said you won't see any difference, but all I'm seeing is the numbers have gone up. And Vice Chair had once mentioned that when the numbers keep going up, district will bring to our attention and start having a meeting or something else to kind of drill down and see, using like a root cause and find out what critical policy is not working. Because this is serious in my mind. If the numbers like this go, this is the all-time high. We never had even annual numbers like this. So, and there is a level of urgency I really would like us to sit down and get beyond just giving the report and say we need to drill down and see if our policies, unfortunately, it's not working. It's time to come back and say it's not working. We need to rethink and things like that. Our community has been asking, you know, we have spent $600,000 on different form of security, but that is also not working. We say we are practicing restorative practice, but there is no clear policy to, none of us can see, parents haven't seen what that policy looks like. So, and without policy, I don't know how any organization can have some kind of standardized practice, which can be scaled up or down or every way. So I really think there is a level of seriousness. We need to bring it up with some level of urgency. And we have to be upfront and honest, saying, if our policies are working, let's do a good job, we'll keep it. If it is not working, let's come back and tell the community it's not working. We have to completely retool and things like that. With the numbers like this, it's not acceptable for me as a school board director. For me, at the end of the day, I am that union leader for all our children, because there is nobody else to represent our children. Teachers, educators, staff, superintendent, they have their own unions, and our children are at the, you know, we have to speak up. And I like to, on the record, speak up and say, this is not acceptable. And this is what we meant when we said last year in April, we will start drilling down, we'll wait a few months, and then we will take the numbers, have a different committee and try to look at it, do a root cause analysis. We will go by that. We were assured of redesign discipline policies will be changed in March of 2021. If it has been changed, let's kind of unpack and see if that is working or not. If it is not working, let's do something different. But to continue to see these numbers go up, it hurts me to see our little children being put in this place. And it's very painful. And sometimes parents contact us individually, and I see these numbers. I see these numbers are not pretty. So with that, I'm going to stop. I don't know what others think.
Thank you. Superintendent Perry, do you want to take a moment to respond, or let Director Hyan ask her question?
Why don't you let Director Hyan ask her question?
Thank you, Superintendent and Mr. Chair. I'm having a brain fart here. What was I going to say? Oh, even though we don't need to read the whole thing, I think it would be helpful to the public to maybe summarize or read some of the parts that we're adding and changing. I believe it's all in red. I don't have it in front of me, or I'd offer to assist, but I think that would be real helpful because not everybody's going to be able to get to the website and read all the changes that are being proposed.
I just had a couple questions back to Director Chandragiri. Did you say that if restorative practices isn't working, we should have it go away? I didn't hear that correctly. I just wanted to ask that back.
Thank you for asking that. I'm not saying that. We have informed the community that we will have a redesigned policy. We'll have a safety summit. We said March of 21, we'll have this. We promised the community that we'll have some kind of practice or policy change, something which will be so that parents know what exactly is expected of their children in the school building. We haven't produced a document or anything to let the thing. If I asked for the policy, the district policy, it's the same as the old policy. So if you have the same policy but different staff, you're going to have the same result or similar result. So I'm not saying that restorative practice is the problem. It's what are we calling restorative practice? How are the parents to know what is restorative practice? How have you been able to get all the 5,000 employees to completely be trained and be proficient in restorative practice? So I'm not entirely clear, but one thing is very clear, the numbers have gone up like never before. And this is not good for our children, our staff, or anybody working in these buildings. So if we may be calling it restorative practice, but is it really working because the numbers don't add up? We may have to say, maybe there are some way in which we are practicing restorative practice may not be what we are intending to do. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of what is the root cause of this kind of numbers that has gone up. First, we were told, this time of the year, last year, we compared 3 months, but I've been patiently seeing the numbers keep going up. So I'm not sure, are there any exceptions to what we are practicing? Or are we practicing with true fidelity to whatever our, the restorative model? Has there been any policy changes that we can say is different from the old policy? If you are suspending so many children in 240 days, so it has become like every day so many kids are getting suspended. 3,200 in 240 days, as not including Saturday, Sunday, holidays. That's like plenty every day. So that doesn't add up to me, Superintendent Perry. I'm not saying we shouldn't practice, but something.
I was just asking a clarifying question.
Yeah, I'm just.
And you've got a lot of questions.
My frustration is
in there.
We've got like 27 or 28 law enforcement referrals. We've got a few children who have been arrested in school. We never had all those numbers before. So I'm really concerned that something is not working. That's for the district to tell us what is working and what's not working and what kind of changes you want to make. This is a purely operational, you're the experts. I'm just a school board director, just watching the numbers and saying the outcomes don't add up to safety. I will rest here. I don't think.
I have lots of comments, but I think I would feel better if I based them in to be sure I'm looking back at true data. I've got my team is thinking that some of the numbers you're stating just don't quite. So let us think about the numbers a little bit and think how to describe them to you rather than doing it off the cuff here.
Superintendent Perry, this is from the agenda packet. I'm reading that page number, whatever that thing. It says 8,257 total incidents of discipline from September to March. This is from the data that has been included in today's packet.
No, I was talking about in previous years' data and things. Okay. So that wasn't in there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Director Knowles-Pressey.
To Director Chandragiri's points, I think that what I would also be interested in seeing is what I see on top of the escalation of incidents is also a decrease in the sense of belonging. And so whenever we're talking about the restorative practices, how much of that are we making sure that our students are receiving the mental health supports that they need? And how are we quantifying that we are supporting them to reduce this escalation and increase their sense of belonging? Because to me, that is also very concerning, is that we have so many children on top of just being agitated from the pandemic and their home lives or anything, a myriad of different things, that we're saying that we're having restorative practices, but we're not actually basing that in like mental health supports and the follow through with that.
Yeah, I will say again, which I think I've said multiple times, is we're not saying kids aren't really struggling and coming back. We all know what the pandemic has done to kids. So I appreciate that, Maria.
And going back to Dr. Hyens, so what I will read real fast is just the policy to return in person, kind of a summary. But there's a lot of red, as you referred to, right? So I'll just read what's on the first page, right? Back in August 2021, board leadership decided to suspend in-person board meetings due to the rising safety concern. Shortly after that, the board tasked the board subcommittee with assessing and updating safety procedures for in-person board meetings. The purpose of this committee was to ensure practices were in place to ensure a safe and welcoming environment for those who attend board meetings, and to articulate how the board will respond to behavior that comprises the safety of those in attendance, as well as behaviors that disrupts the public meeting space. Now, the board subcommittee held 4 meetings between November 2021 and March 2022. Consultants from the Safety Risk Management Services, Oregon School Board Association, and district leadership were in attendance at these meetings to support with the process. In these meetings, it was determined that a revision to BG11 board operations was necessary, with important attention to an internal and external safety plans, and B, public comment procedures and expectations. And C, behavior expectations in the boardroom and board response to those in violation of behavior expectations. With guidance from OSBA consultants, the board determined the board as a collective must come to consensus on operational agreements to ensure this policy is implemented in practice with fidelity. In discussion today, I just want to share with the public community is that, we as board directors have a responsibility to also share the same message with our community members that we are reaching out to. We want to invite everybody back and have everybody back in a boardroom, but have it be safe, have it be a safe and welcoming place where we can act and behave in respectful demeanor for all participants, for our students, for our younger children, for our elders, and for our adults, our parents. So as we move forward, as we review this policy and move forward to adopt it, we have that expectation to, in positive behavior and safe and welcome behaviors. So that would be my message for now. Again, this information will be posted, or if not already posted, to receive feedback. And again, we'll be receiving feedback from the work that our 3 directors put into this, and we can get a final policy written and approved. So then we can move forward to in-person policies with security measures in place. But I hope just as that is, safety measures to be in place, but we don't need them, but only to rely on them if we need them. Because I have an expectation of this community that we are a community that can unite, overcome these differences, all for the sake of education for our community. So thank you. Director Carson Carnham, you had your hand up.
Thank you. It felt like maybe we needed to close out that last discussion that Dr. Director Chandragiri and Director Hinojos Presi were raising, maybe a small group of us could meet to go over some of this data and try to dig in a little deeper to what's going on, because I think it's concerning to everyone. We know everybody's under a lot of pressure, but we want to make sure, or at least I know I want to make sure that the restorative practices are being fully implemented to the extent possible, given all the other demands that have occurred. And I feel like it's going to take another small concerted group of us to really kind of dig into that with district leadership.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to maybe get some clear data from years past and how we're tracking and what the length of time is for full implementation of restorative practice, just so we all know how to calibrate each month to know that it is improving or not improving, that sort of work. I also still would like to get a few people out into some middle schools just to take a look at those systems, especially at Hauk, who's one of our pilot schools.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe that's something we can do in groups of 2 and 3 together if other directors are interested. I think some of you already have done that, but I'm definitely interested.
Some of those on the calendars.
Moving real quick, so over to what we're talking about now on the meeting, returning to in-person meetings. I think thank you to the subcommittee who worked to bring forward changes and recommendations, and I'm excited to get back in person and do it safely. I guess I just worry about interpretation of some of the policies, and that given all of our varied backgrounds and experiences, each of us may interpret the policies slightly different. And I'm concerned, as with everything we do, that there is bias. We all have bias. And so just looking forward to maybe when we are meeting, I think tomorrow, on board working agreements, that we maybe talk through some of that and how we're going to address each of our biases when we are approaching a situation in the boardroom, and that we all are mindful of those, and that potentially we do some bias training together so that we approach the policies in the most best way possible together as a group of directors. That was one of my thoughts during this first reading.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's input. And moving on to item number 11, which is board reports. So at this time, I'll ask board members and Grace to report on activities since the last board meeting. Just a reminder to please be brief. We have about 1 to 2 minutes each, since we're at 8:48 and we should be done by 9 p.m. For our translating team. Director Hyatt.
Thank you. First item is I was able to attend the ribbon cutting for CTEC's new culinary program and enjoyed some of their offerings. They had really good snacks and drinks, and it was very impressive. And I just loved the environment and all the equipment and everything, and the excitement of the students. The other thing is not so happy, unfortunately. I did attempt to help a parent yesterday, but the district barred me from doing so. In fact, they subjected this parent to a 20-person group that included the press and our student advisor, all without anyone to stand with her for moral support. The district would not allow anyone, not even a board member. I was appalled, and I am appalled at those who rolled their eyes at her and lectured her about things that had nothing to do with her concern. This is not how we work with parents.
Thank you for sharing that concern. We had a discussion, board leadership had a discussion with Superintendent Perry as this operation. This is the district operations that we identified that there is progress to be made. I just would like to say though, how the impact of a board member could construe and put pressure, undue pressure and influence on our district employees in a process that they're delegated to complete. But there's going to be new avenues.
They should have allowed her to have support. I did it because they wouldn't allow anybody, and that is wrong. It's not really where I should be. I know that, but I'm not going to let a parent stand alone. And in that kind of circumstance, if I can do something about it.
Again, the process will be reviewed, and looking forward to this being updated, as there have not been a book challenge or trying to remove a book in many, many years. So thank you. I believe Director Knowles-Pressey and then Director Bethel.
Not to belabor the point, because I know that you have said that it is going to be addressed, but I am also very disappointed in what has happened. I think that it's very inaccessible and unequitable, and I would absolutely be terrified to come into a room with a bunch of people I don't know and also have media there. So just wanted to voice that I am also disappointed in this. And then in terms of my actual board report, the COG met, we had an legislative committee update on the short session. They're going to continue their meetings, their convenings, focusing on housing, the houselessness, and up next, they're going to be focusing on transit. The COG also adopted a rate change. Annual increases are, normal. And as many of board directors here experienced just briefly with our our zone change, they do have a fee for service and also membership rates. And normally the COG adopts the Seattle consumer rate, and the COG decided to go lower because they're hoping that inflation will be fleeting and that it will hopefully normalize in the near future. And instead of passing on an undue burden to the COG's members, they're hoping that we can ride it out and not increase as high as the Seattle Consumer Rate Index. Also participated in the SCATS meeting. It was discussed about increasing funding to established projects. Re-inflation also, there's a lot of there's 3 established projects that have encountered higher costs, and so needed additional funding. We also reviewed criteria for use in project evaluation processes in the process. Some members were really pushing to try and quantify the data that we have. For example, evaluating a project based on greenhouse gas emission reduction and quantifying an EJ area and making sure the distribution of these criteria is equitable. And then a kind of random little note on SCATS is that those meetings will now start being posted on YouTube. So they will be a little bit more accessible to the general public if folks are interested in watching SCATS proceedings. And then finally, just based on public comment and other comments, I do appreciate Director Hyen's comment earlier in the meeting about the concern for safety of our students in making sure that the facilities are accessible for all students. I do know that trans folks do encounter rates of sexual assault 4 times, about 25% higher than cisgendered folks. And so I do hope that we can make sure that all of our students are safe. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Director Bethel?
Thank you, Chair Avila. I just want to reiterate that over the last several weeks, the board has taken in numerous emails from parents across the community on various topics, but specifically this topic on libraries. And I'm appalled at the behavior of the superintendent, specifically leading her staff to silence the voice of parents and encourage access for children to items that the parents don't want them to be engaging in. I couldn't believe when I heard from the parent yesterday to the bullying harassment that I believe she received on behalf of the district. I think the district is in direct violation of these proclamations that seem to be such a fabulous thing each month that obviously hold no teeth because they in fact bully parents regularly. And I just want to say on the record that lots and lots of parents have tried to reach the superintendent, and she's choosing to not acknowledge and engage them for whatever reason. And so they're turning to the board, which is unfortunate because we can't answer a lot of their questions. And I would hope that she would find the time as the superintendent of this district to have those community-wide conversations that she's claimed for the 3 years that I've been on this board are important to her. And she listened to all of the parents, not just the ones that she believes fits the agenda or narrative that she's seeking. And I just want to publicly say to that parent, I'm sorry that you experienced that behavior from this district yesterday. And I find it even more shocking that we had students in the room to witness it. It's just a tragedy that we're here and that we can't actually have open conversations that are supposedly supported. So I hope that the leadership truly does mean to look into that and to adjust and to ask the community as a whole what they would like to see in our schools and really do that hard work. Because regardless of what's said in these board meetings and public comment, I do care about all the kids here and I care about the families. And I think they all need to be heard. And I think we have some really respectful people who are really trying to engage on all sides of these issues. And they all deserve to be heard and they all deserve to be present in the discussions because nobody wants to see kids hurt. Nobody. I don't know a single person. So thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, for stating that you're going to do something. I look forward to seeing you be successful in that, and I hope I can support you through it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Chandigarh.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep it brief. I just want to say thank you. I know it has been difficult. I was hoping that we'll have in the agenda today something on dual language immersion. But thank you, Vice Chair, for connecting, and thank you, Superintendent Perry and Chair Pavila, that we are on 26th of this month, we'll have a work session and the first reading. So I really appreciate, I really want to publicly acknowledge this. There are so many community agencies and parents groups and coalition and others who have been working tirelessly to make sure that we can find a way to provide the best form of education model for our multilingual children. And we have like 97 different languages, and Pashto and Ukrainian are the most recent ones. So hopefully we'll have a future day, we'll have English and Pashto schools or English and Ukrainian school. But we'll start this process now. So thank you. It has been difficult. I know some of my emails have been a little harsh, but it was meant to make sure that we do the right thing and we start the process this year. So thank you. And thank you, Chair Avila, for incorporating all that. And let's kind of, as a board, let's start this process and ask the district to start the process this year. So thank you very much. And another note, I really appreciate the Chair and Vice Chair and Superintendent for your support after I emailed you some concerning graffitis in my clinic. So I really want to also publicly state that thank you for lending your support, and also City of Salem Police Department for coming and helping with graffiti abatement. It was a little jarring, but I just wanted to make sure that things like that are not okay. Everybody deserves good education and good health care. So it can be traumatizing for some who come to seek help in my clinic, but you'll get better. As a community, we'll learn to have peace and harmony and make sure that things like that don't happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Chandigarh. Director Guzman Ortiz or Grace, any comments to share?
I'll quickly go. Yesterday, there was an SIA meeting, which I fortunately had to join in a little late due to work. But there was a review of the LGBTQ policies and the implementation across the district and why they're so important. And just thankful again for those who showed up today for public comment and support over transgender students and the district policies. Just want to reiterate my support for those. There was also reporting on the progress of the language acquisition and dual language strategies to the SIA group, and we look forward to having these before the full board in the coming weeks. Lastly, there wasn't enough time. We kind of ran out of time to cover completely like the restorative practices. So I look forward to continuing that conversation, and seems timely, especially with what we are seeing also in terms of behavior and disciplinary actions. So look forward to further discussion there as we move forward.
Thank you.
I think I shared most of my updates in the superintendent's report, but other than that, I got added to the budget committee, so I'll be able to attend those if I have the time. So that's about it.
Nice. Vice Chair Carson Cunningham.
Thank you. I was able to attend the elementary choir festival. I don't think we've met since that occurred. What a wonderful event, hearing all those kiddos sing. It was really nice after the pandemic for the last several years. And then also I was able to go to an event at South Salem High School for the Saxon Success Fund, raising money for the Celia's College and Career Center. And so I think they're well on their way to raising the funds needed to have that resource at South Salem. And I also just want to speak to my support for our LGBTQIA+ youth, and that I am committed to fighting for you and being the best ally I can be. Thank you.
Last thought, Marty?
Thank you. I just wanted to tell everybody or remind people that McKay has a FFA, Future Farmers of America program, and they grow vegetable and flower plants every year in their greenhouse. They will be available starting, I believe, March 3rd from 4 to 7, but you should check their site. They have something on Facebook, I believe. You can pre-order. And they're a great bargain, and it helps our kids. So please go there and encourage others to go as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for sharing, for all the work that you're doing. I do really appreciate it. You know, like we said, with the discussion today with the book banning process, it's really unfortunate. Director Bethel, you state that you don't know anybody that wants to hurt children. But I think the very action of trying to ban books for information that have historical perspectives that are dismissed in the natural, or what we've grown to be raised up in dismissing perspectives and values and stories and experiences of other minorities and groups of people. I think that does damage to our students. The district does have in place a process for parents to be able to select books that their children cannot check out if they choose to do so. But to try to get it dismissed from our libraries, where reading does a grand value of growth and knowledge, cognitive, developmental, critical thinking skills, I believe that can't be taken away. We have to have equal access. Varying perspectives, that offers diversity. That helps us allow us to understand each other, the problems that we face, the challenges that we face, a better understanding, even to our LGBTQ students that want to come out, as I shared before. That process can be very daunting and damaging. So we wanted to try to create policies. We'll advise the superintendent on this policy. As I said, we've noted some concerns as well, and that she'll go back and reevaluate this process. So to address those concerns. But I just want to end with that note and just want to thank everybody. Director Hyen, I am stating the last words for tonight.
You didn't want to ban it. That is incorrect. So,
well, it's a process called book banning, and it's national. So I will try not to get that, but let's move forward. Let's keep all the books as possible in our libraries and provide those options for our students. So thank you, everybody. The time is 9:05. This meeting has been adjourned. Have a good evening.
For more videos and information, go to capitalcommunitymedia.org and follow us on social media.